Hi, everybody. We should be set up here, and as I had mentioned in the email I sent to everybody, you should have you have explicit information on my schedule for the week of April 30th to May 4th, which is Monday through Friday. You'll note the virtual office hours as well as the physical office hours when I'm over there in Shawnee, and of course on Friday the 4th I won't have any hours. I sometimes have meetings, that type of thing. So, and I've also posted that information in the announcements, and as I mentioned, I will also I will let you know if something changes. But and I may the reason I'm doing this is to make absolutely certain that everybody knows I'm here and available to help as we're in this flex time period of the course. And as I've mentioned before, I've built the course in this way to push the responsibility for turning in assignments, getting work done, to push it squarely to you. This is you know, it's your education, it's your money, it's your career. And I know that most of you are upperclassmen and you already know this, and I'm hoping that this has helped you firm that up even a little bit more. I can't make anybody learn anything. Ultimately, you're the person who engages in learning, and that is a change in your behavior. That change in your behavior could be simply a connection in your synapses where you learn a concept to something as detailed as some physical, like an athlete learns to a quarterback learns their footwork, etc. But learning is about change, and so I've done my best to give you those opportunities, and I very seriously. Let me say this. I also will not underestimate you. You are extremely intelligent young people. Many of you are very, very diligent, because I know this because you're working your way through school either on a scholarship or working part-time. And I admire you for doing that. And I can tell you, if I had had this format when I was an undergraduate, I would have thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Okay? So this is a great opportunity for you. And I hope you'll make the most of it. Well, this is Module 13, Week 13, and this is the week of April 30th, May 2nd, and May 4th. Those are the class times. And of course, May 4th is Friday, and by tradition in this course, May 4th is a full lab day, and I've made it a virtual lab day where you're working completely on your own. Now, let's talk about what's going on, okay? And we're going to look at Module 13. We have some things we'll be doing, okay? And then we come down to Module 15, and you'll notice I don't have anything that I'm going to be showing or going on. What you do have is the SAP assignment, okay? And Part A and Part B, and then the self-developed quiz from the Anderson text. And that Anderson text, of course, is the big textbook, and I've got instructions over here for you to do that. So you've got those assignments coming. So, I'm not sure what I'll do that week, or if I'll even do a screencast. I might do a Q&A session or something like that, but you should be well on your way to working. Now, those of you who've taken the BISS sequence, which is the Business Information Systems and Strategies, you'll know that in I believe it's in 4403, the data admin course, that you get an opportunity to work with Oracle, you get an opportunity to work with SAS Visual Analytics, and so now SAP rounds that out and giving you a full kind of complement of experiences. So when you go out to interview for a job, look, every business student is good at spreadsheeting. Now, I think when we're finished with you, you're better than most. However, what most business schools are not doing is really giving their students the intensive preparation for the use of databases, and what's coming after those are hybrid products that are a combination of databases, okay, and a combination of databases and spreadsheets. As you've heard me say many times before, let a spreadsheet be a spreadsheet, let a database be a database. Use the tools for what they're intended to do. It's kind of like the difference. It's kind of like the difference between a hammer and a screwdriver. You can do certain things with a hammer. You can do certain things with a screwdriver. But I give you that so that when you're out there and you're applying for, and when you create your resume, you can state, I have quite a bit of experience working with databases. That's a real distinctive that's going to put you over the top. And the truth is that when you go out to work and you finish our sequence of tech courses, you will have the skill sets equivalent to you'll have the skill sets equivalent to a business analyst. So you not only have background in terms of your major or your concentration, you're going to have that skill set on top of it. So all I can say is this is important. Now I scrolled up here. I want to show you this in the business data roles. Okay. And I'm going to download this. Well, I'll just zoom it up so we can see it. And yeah, I'm going to need to download this. Well, let's see if I can. I'm going to go full page for a second and then zoom it up. Now, if you're watching closely, you're going to see this is from a colleague at Duke University, which is a pretty good university. And Dale Egger, Dale has gone out and done extensive surveys. He's gone out and talked with the top companies in the world, corporations, as well as small and medium-sized businesses. And what is it, the skills in terms of handling data or data-driven companies do you need? Now, the truth is that most companies today, whether they know it or not, are data-driven. And as you go to work and you start encountering these things people call dashboards, you're really going to understand where that's coming from. Now, that's why in Business 1123, if you recall, you took it with me, that I made you take all those quizzes from the Stephen Few text called Show Me the Numbers. And I talked a lot about the presentation of data and looking at data and putting them into some type of a visual format. Well, Daniel did this research to say, what skills do companies really want in data-driven companies? And by his estimation, about 80% of all companies are data-driven. So, and here it is, the business analyst. Can you identify critical business metrics? Okay. You've heard me talk about this before. Metrics. Why are we collecting the data we collect? These are measures. Find and apply appropriate models for each metric. When you're here in management science, especially in management science, we kind of close the loop or tie the knot between Business 1123 and this course, because here in management science, we talk about what's the appropriate model to understand this business problem we're dealing with. And it's management science. Management science is really, in many ways, not too different from, it uses the scientific method, okay? We identify a problem or a condition. And so we go through a process where we try to find something that can give us a model, a way to look at it, okay? And that's why in the first 2 chapters of the book, we talked extensively, the authors and I as well in lecture, talked a lot about this issue of problem solving versus decision making. And we talked about the different types of models. Okay. Now, the most powerful is the mathematical model. And you say, why is that? The most powerful is the mathematical model because it allows us to simulate. And we can use the random function or the rand between function in Excel to simulate variables. We can do thousands of simulations of a set of data. And we can come up with the possible outcomes and the potential variability, which also means the amount of risk. This is more than just doing some computing. This is a thought process. It's a way of thinking. So we do that. And then evaluate the effectiveness of the models used. We certainly do that. Well, interview clients to define project requirements. And the client may be internal to the court. And we do stress a lot of that in business communication. But in these courses I teach, you'll notice that I'm always saying, especially in management science, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you get the wrong data, you're going to get the wrong data. You'll end up with the wrong answers. And certainly in business 4403, data admin, where we build tables and we talk a lot about them, that certainly is a critical piece of this. And it's the same here in the management science. When you hear me say, okay, here's the file that the authors have provided as an example. Where did those numbers come from? How good are those numbers? So that's an important piece. And then he talks about Excel skills, and we do all that and work with that. Presentation skills, you get those. And then finally, data visualization skills. And he talks about a product there called Tableau, which is a hybrid product, which is kind of a combination of Excel and Access. And you're going to run into this more and more throughout your career, where you'll have a client, you'll have an application that works like this. Now, I understand that sometimes you may say, oh, this is pretty far-fetched. I might go to work for a plumbing company. It's a plumber. And maybe your family owns a small business. And you go, I'll never use this stuff. Trust me, it's all getting dumbed down so that ordinary people can use this stuff. It's just like Excel. When I used my first spreadsheet, it was not for someone who didn't have a lot of background in statistics and had some programming. Today, everybody uses Excel. And so we get you prepared in terms of being a business data analyst, okay? And new ways to combine data, and then ability to pull new data and recombine it, say using SQL queries. We certainly do that. So we really, as you can see, we give you the skill sets of a business data analyst, and certainly we cover that of a business analyst. So when you leave here, you have a really, really distinctive set of skills that you can use. And as I've emphasized over and over, it's more than just simply using a piece of software. It's a mindset. Okay, well, I'm gonna exit the full screen. All right, and we're gonna go back over to the we're going to go back over to the modules section. And we're here, of course, on module 13. And before we go any further, I want to talk about what's coming up. You've got module 14, And this is flex time. The SAP Business One, Part A and B, and the Anderson Text Self-Developed Quiz, those should be done. All right? Why? So that you can be working on your final. And I provide you explicit instructions for the final exam, Part 1, the final exam, part A1, excuse me, and then Part A2, and then Part B. And you'll notice that A and B are due. A is due at the start of the final exam period. Part B is due at the end. A is due at the start. B is due at the end. Now, as you've heard me say many times, you have labs. Maybe you have a machine at home or over at the dorm, but you can get these. You can do your final and get it uploaded and done before the final exam period. But just for those who will procrastinate, no, we've always got them. Here it is. Your final exam period is Monday the 14th, Monday, May 14th, from 10:15 to 12:15. So given the fact you're on the front end of this and all this flex time I give you, okay, get it done. And as always, when I have on Tuesday, let's see, Monday's the 30th. Let's see, Monday's the 30th. Tuesday's the 1st. Wednesday's the 3rd. I'll do my calendar here. You say, what are you trying to say, Dr. Harmon? Here's what I'm saying. On Tuesday and Wednesday, when I'm in my office over here in Oklahoma City, at this time of year, okay, I tell the churches, the folks that I work with, which a lot of my work now is with churches, okay, I work with them on their databases and data collection and some projections and using some mapping tools. So I tell them during this time of period, I'm really have to make they appreciate the fact that OBU is out helping them. But I tell them, look, my day job, my day job, or my biggest part of my ministry is serving you young people. So on Tuesday and Wednesday, when you look at my schedule, you're going to see I think I have 5 or 6 hours of virtual office hours, and I couldn't be any more accessible. On Monday, the 30th, I'm over there. I think my office hours are maybe 4 hours or 5 hours, something like that. Same thing for Thursday. So when I'm available, almost 20 off hours a week, basically what a half-time employee works. You don't have any crybaby time that Dr. Harmon wasn't here to help you. Folks, I'll try to help you in any way I possibly can. But and that's why I send you my schedule, so you know what's going on. Okay? Now, let's go back over here for a second. Okay? And on Wednesday, I will probably go over the final, but look, you can read. And you can comprehend. You're intelligent people. And so you know what you need to do and when these are due. So I won't spend too much more time talking about that. Now, let's get back here to the 30th. We have quite a bit of material here today. Now, this screencast for today, this screencast for April 30th, okay, which is Monday, is going to run longer than 50 minutes. And the reason is I'm going to go through all this spiel. Wednesday will be a lot shorter. But we're going to come to a point here in this chapter 14 where we talk about multi-criteria decision-making. So I'm going to go over here to the bookshelf. Here, and I love, this is from Vital Source. I absolutely totally love this digital book. Folks, let me tell you something. You know, I give you quizzes, and if you have a digital textbook, you can search through there and you can find where those terms or concepts are mentioned, especially within the chapter. So I really encourage you, when possible, to get to get a if you have a Kindle, or you can download the Kindle client, or you can get the book through a virtual means. I really encourage you to do so. I think it just makes it so much easier for you. And as you can see, we talk about these types of multi-criteria decisions, and I wanted to kind of quickly kind of give you an overview of them, because the authors of the text laid this out. Okay, now they talk about goal programming and the graphical solutions. The authors in this first part of chapter 14 dutifully walk us through, showing us the feasible sets, so that we can be well aware that yes, you can graph and chart the solution and you can see it. And before we had the tools we had today, that's how you did it. By hand. It would make me crazy, because I'd say I'm spending more time as a student, I'd say I'm spending more time trying to figure out, do the math, than I am trying to say, what does it tell me? So, but they go ahead and do this. Now, as we come down, then they talk about the models where we solve more complex problems, and they give us a series of these cases that we'll be working with. Now, again, they walk us through the method, developing the constraints and the goal equations, developing objective functions with preemptive priorities. You say, what in the world is that? That means things that can preempt, or things that can take precedent over variables over other variables. That's really all it's about. And then the graphical solution problem, then the goal programming model. And here in the second part of this chapter, they're going to walk through some examples of using goal programming, and then they show us at 14.3 where we can use some scoring models. And then we in part 4 of chapter 14, we use the analytical hierarchy process, and we're going to see that how we can take multi-criteria decision making means what it says and says what it means. It means I've got several factors that play into my decision. In other words, multiple criteria. And how does that work? How do I prioritize them? Okay, and then establishing priorities and using the HP, and we've got a case study that we'll be using and working with. Okay, so we'll be working over in chapter 14. Now, I want to go back over here for a moment to the course, and I have some resources here that I really, really, really encourage you to go out and take a look at. You'll often, on these surveys that we make you take these, and you've probably seen the IDEA surveys, or maybe when you'll get a kind of handmade survey, and that's typically when someone's going up for senior status or going up for promotion. And this year I'm serving on the PSNS committee, which looks at people. Let me give you an idea real quickly. When a faculty member comes to OBU, or almost any place today, we really take a look at their background. We'll even see them teach. We try them before we buy them. Then usually about year 3, you go through and evaluate some type of an assessment. And we decide you're making good progress, or we decide maybe we need to say goodbye. Then typically at year 5 or year 6, a person will put out, will go stand, and some places call it tenure. Here we call it senior status. And this is the third institution in which I worked, in which I went through the process of getting tenure or senior status. And at 3 very different universities, and I served on the tenure and promotion committees. You said, what are you trying to tell me? Well, what I'm trying to tell you is, we do a lot of similar things as we look at candidates. And then after someone gets senior status, every 5 years, they come back and say, okay, what's going on? What are you doing, etc. Okay, so we follow in many ways that type of thing, the pattern. And I provide you these links, like Herbert Simon, who is one of the most important thinkers in management, who talks about what he calls theories of bounded rationality and satisficing. You've heard me say many times when we're working, you've heard me many times when we're working with a solver, garbage in, garbage out. Make sure you have the numbers you need to have. Make sure that when you simulate something, that you're working with the right variables. And Herbert Simon, his theory of bounded rationality says, okay, we only know so much. All right. And if you've had a course of me, you probably saw me where I put up this matrix that on the top, I had known and unknown, and that stood for conditions or states of nature. And then on the vertical axis, okay, there, and I had that horizontal axis at the top, the quadrant. And then I also had known and unknown solutions or alternatives and the possible outcomes. That's very similar to when you had your stat class. You should have talked about type 1 and type 2 error. Okay? And so this is a very important resource. There's also this notion of satisficing versus optimizing. In this course, we've talked about what's the optimal solution? What's the best solution I can get given the resources I have? But because organizations ultimately are political, because they're peopled, then we often have to make decisions that are not optimal. They're decisions that will satisfy everybody. They're compromises that we make. And so Simon says, that's funny, isn't it? Herbert Simon says, we engage in a lot of satisficing, or sometimes we'll even provide some very contradictory messages. All right, and so I have 2 resources there for you to take a look at, and then the concept of Pareto efficiency, an exceptionally important concept. Vilfredo Pareto was an Italian. I believe he was from Venice, and he came up with this notion of, can we find a solution that helps that helps the decision maker but doesn't harm other people? You are going to find in life, in your career, as I have found, even here at OBU, that there are people who believe that life is about winners and losers. Life is about a zero-sum game. I win, you lose. And those people are sad and usually not very successful. Not successful in this, they may accumulate a lot of wealth or power or that kind of thing, but they're not going to be people who are honored and respected. And certainly, if you're a believer, they're not the kind of people whose behavior our Lord is going to be happy about. Okay? So you want to find this, and I want you to take a look at that because it certainly is applicable. And now, you'll see here that I have the reciprocal lattice. This is a model borrowed from the physical sciences, and we're going to be using this model when we do the scoring case. We do that case. And as I've said before, the methodology of most social sciences or applied social sciences, businesses and applied social science, tries to find models from the physical world or from mathematical theory that we can apply, okay? And so the reciprocal lattice is one of those, and we'll see how that works out in the scoring case. And this is why we call this course management science. Now, I want to clarify something for you because we're at the point in the course now where I think it'll make a lot of sense for you. You're going to hear people use the terms method and methodology interchangeably when they don't mean the same thing. Methodology means my philosophy about how I do things. A method is a particular way I act out that methodology. The methodology of business is we try to assess the amount of variability or risk that's out there, and we try to find ways to deal with it and to mitigate it. Okay? That, in essence, is what business is all about, because we don't want to bankrupt a company. We don't want to make a product that kills people, etc. So I want you to go out and take a look at these. I challenge you to, when we do these surveys, and I'll get students who'll say, Dr. Harvey didn't challenge me intellectually. Listen, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, if I wanted to, I could build a course that I'd have you crying and asking for your mama after the third or fourth week. But I see no reason to beat you down, okay? I believe you're intelligent enough to know, if you go out to the OVU website, you can see my background, and to listen and say, this is somebody who understands all this. One of the most interesting jobs I had, I decided at one point, I retired from higher education, and I was fortunate to be able to do so, and I decided to just, to travel. And then I had a friend call me, and I went to work for a private community where I was basically like a city manager and the park superintendent. We had lakes, we had a marina, we had tennis courts, we had camping grounds. We had our own road. We had our own. We built our own roads and maintained them. We had a post office, but we also had all these beautiful. We had six dammed lakes, 3 of which had to be certified. I didn't know anything about grouting a dam. I learned a lot. We had a clubhouse, we had a beach, a pool, and it was an experience for me. It was a true learning experience. I learned how you make a road. I learned how campgrounds are run. I learned so much, and you see that experience. Okay, I can come in and speak with you about this and talk with some authority because I've been out there and I've done this. Very often, I had a board of directors let's see, my board was 15 people. And many times we would arrive at a decision and we'd understand we had to deal with some competing elements. For example, we had a contingent of the community, okay, that were all about fishing. They wanted the lakes there to fish. So they wanted to stock the lakes and spend lots of money, which we did. And they were very vocal about monitoring and controlling, one, the size of the boats on the lake, and two, uh, the speeds on the lakes. Why? So they didn't create a lot of wakes because people had docks, and when you create wakes, you could, over time, you can destroy somebody's dock. So this is a big issue. Then we have the campers and the hikers who wanted, who the camp, and they wanted the campground there, and it is to be first rate. We had many people who lived in St. Louis who just bought a plot of land, never put a home on it, but we called them fishing lots. And they'd come out and they'd stay at the campground, and then they'd go fishing. Or they'd do the hiking trails. And when we expanded the hiking trails, we had to go to the state to find out that make sure we weren't digging up some archaeologically protected place, etc. I learned a lot, and so I always try to encourage you to do some additional learning, okay, by going out to these links. And here's weighting by private pairwise comparison. And this is the AHP Excel file. And this is the file, I tell you, use this file to complete the AHP assignment. And the AHP assignment, you're going to see that over there in chapter 14. Okay. And there, in fact, it's from pages 667 to 687. And that's the background reading for the AHP. Then the scoring case that's due. Okay. And then I have a screenshot for you. And then I have the scoring key for Excel. And you can upload those for the credit. The main thing is I want you to look at them and to learn about them and see how they work. And then there's the key for the AHP. Now, what I had decided, okay, was to try to look at and preview the scoring and look at AHP, okay? So I'm going to come over here to the book, and we're going to find the analytical hierarchy process. I'm going to start with it first. Okay. Now, again, this is where we try to take a set of variables or criteria and put them into a priority order. All right. This is a problem that businesses face all the time. Okay. Now, one of the things I got involved in when I served in the military was logistics and logistics support. And we did a lot of work with HP because we wanted to make sure, here's what we tried to achieve. Every time and trust me, we spent a lot of time working on this. We wanted to achieve this. If we're loading a C-47, or a large cargo plane, okay, we want to make sure that we load the stuff we need the most at the end and the stuff we need the least at the front inside the cargo bay. Why? Because you want to get the stuff off there first. And that was one of those issues. The other issues was, taking and moving people. Where would you set up triage centers? And so when I went to Webster University back in the middle 90s, after I got my PhD, I went back and got 2 more master's degrees, one in finance, one in operations. Because I had worked with problems in terms of, okay, where would we set up triage centers to take care of people, etc. So the AHP, we have a set of multiple criteria right here on page 679. Okay, we see that this individual's going to buy a car, and she's going to base her decision on price, miles per gallon, comfort, and style. Those are the four criteria. And I like this case because it's so down to earth. But and almost everybody goes through this experience. Now, and then we're provided a table about the information on 3 different cars. Now I know this is dated. It's an Accord, it's a Saturn, and Cavalier. I've never owned the Saturn and Cavalier, but I have owned a Honda Accord. And I can tell you this: I bought a Honda Accord in 1989. I had that car and I got 230,000 miles of it, and it ran. It was front wheel drive, and it was a fantastic. You'll see them, the square bodied kind of things. I'll never forget when I bought it. It was champagne. The color was a champagne, and the interior. When you close the door, you just hear a boom. And that said, this baby's put together quite well. And I loved taking a drive. I loved driving the thing because it was very comfortable, but also just really a nimble vehicle. So I can tell you, I've had every Honda product. Okay. I've never owned an Acura, but I had a Prelude. Okay, I've had an Accord. I had the CRX, and all I can tell you is they're great vehicles. Now I don't own those because I, have kind of moved some things out. But anyway, here's the information. Price, the color, miles per gallon, body type. So you can see we've got this multiple set of criteria. Now, if you're a marketing person, okay, you may say to yourself, this sounds suspiciously like the type of approach I would use if I was going to do a focus group or build a survey. Exactly. And so that you're quite correct in that. And now the authors give us some information here in the bottom, and we'll move over. Now, notice that earlier we put those criteria into a table. Now we put that into a hierarchical model. And you can see this. This is just like, you said, oh, this looks like an organization chart. Exactly. Okay. And you select the best car. And here are the criteria. And there are your decision alternatives. Okay. So, and then we talk about developing the hierarchy. And establishing priorities. Then a comparison scale. And then we begin to do the process of what we call pairwise comparisons. That's where we take these factors and match them up against each other, put them into a blender, and find out what is that we really want. Now, I'm being a little more didactic than usual, but we're down to those parts of the text, of the course. We're getting some really powerful tools. And I'd say, folks, if you're a marketer, okay, this is definitely something you want to pay attention to. All right? And certainly if you're going to go out and work in marketing and marketing logistics, which I hope you'll explore those opportunities, you'll be working with these types of models all the time. And the priorities will deal with mode of transportation, the modality, or you'll be into the mode of transportation, and then any kinds of issues related to them, especially in terms of the type of product you're carrying. So here's the summary of her pairwise comparison, and she's provided a numerical rating. Then here is the matrix. using the lattice model. And here we have the comparisons, okay? And the next thing we do is we begin to build and fill in the matrix. And notice what happens. It's called a reciprocal lattice because what we're going to do is flip the remaining cells the remaining cells will be filled by the reciprocal. And there's like the 1/4, and then you see the 1/4, and then the comfort and the style, and that's how we fill in that matrix. Now, I gave you a resource on using the reciprocal lattice, how they're used. So I would expect you to go take a look at that as well as what is here in the textbook. And then they walk us through what the synthesization process, where we put it all together and we come up with a sum in terms of these criteria. And they walk us through sum the value in each column. And it's very important that you notice here on 684 where they talk about a normalized pairwise comparison. We're normalizing the data by using the reciprocals. Just like we normalized some data when we were over there with the Foreman text, and that gets in the Data Smart. Then we start to build a consistency ratio, and here you can see down here how we build that. And we get weighted sums, and they show us those weighted sum vectors. And this is the corresponding priority for each of these. Then we compute the average, so we're getting a summative value. Then we compute a consistency ratio. And then step 5, we compare the consistency ratios. So we want to make sure that we have some consistency in what we're doing. We've normalized the data and we should have it. And then they talk about interpreting the consistency ratio. They give us some other pairwise comparison. Okay, I want to go back over and I want to look at the AHP model. Okay, and I'm going to find that file here. I think I've got it over here. And here's the key. I've got it published. And we're going to download. You can download this. And this is what I want you to upload. See, let me say this, folks. Listen, I'm getting people who are sending me emails going, "Oh, I'm just putting this stuff." Look, if we're working ahead like we are, once you see the screencast and you've downloaded the file, etc., upload it so you get the workshop credit. Now here we are, and let me get this out of the way, and we can enable some editing. And I would save this on my desktop, the whole bit, and so you can upload it. You can see here they talk about the synthesization process of how we do that, and I have some verbiage here for you. And we get an increment in the pairwise comparisons of 1.5. Now, as I tell you, we could take this, we use the scenario manager to get some new values for I-30 to I-33. And we'll go down here. Here they are, the priorities. And as I talk about there, price is the it increases the most because it's the priority with the largest base. Okay, so it works its way through as we normalize the data. So, and I give you page references throughout this key, right? So here's the synthesization model. You can see I do the reciprocal. Okay. And that's step one. Then we sum the values in the columns, and then we divide each element of the matrix by its column total. So we're getting an average. And then in step three of the process of synthesizing these data, we average the elements to determine the criterion. Now, I'll also walk you through the process of computing the consistency ratios. And you want to take a look at this. Now, again, I married all of my commentary in here to the text so you can see exactly the process that we use to get this done. And again, you could, I give you the verbiage so you understand what's going on with them and how we get the consistency ratio. And as I noted, there's some rounding errors in those data. Okay. Then what we end up doing is we divide the vectors by the priority score. And as I point out here, we get the proof of the result on this comparison. And that's pretty much the AHP. Now, again, that's the key, and that's what you should upload for the AHP case. You say, why did you do it like this? I did it because I wanted you, and I've got these keys out here for you to see, all right? So you can work with them, look at them, think about them, not feel pressured to do them. Now, if you want to try and just do it on yourself, be my guest, all right? And will you ever use this? There are many of you who will use this type of model, or you'll be in a situation where you'll want to use this type of model and say, oh, boy, I wish I'd kept a book, or boy, I remember that we did those pairwise comparisons, and you can go out and find that, how to get it done. And the text, again, as I told you, I had walked you through each step of the text. Okay, and the matrices, the priorities, and then we got the overall priority of each of the vehicles that walk us through that process. Now the authors give us some notes here, okay, and they talk about a software package called Expert Choice. This is at the bottom of page. We're on page 689 in the text. This Expert Choice, and it's a decision support software. Okay, and it uses this type of approach, i.e., method, to deal with how people make decisions about what they buy. Okay, now I'm going to give an example. My wife and I are leasing we're leasing a Land Rover Discovery Sport. It's a Land Rover. Why am I leasing that car? It's been on my bucket list to own or lease a Land Rover all my life. It's just one of those bucket list things. Okay. Now, when we visited when we went up to the dealer here in Oklahoma City, and I started looking around, I thought, yeah, I may need to scale things back. Right now, if you want to see something incredible, they have a car up there. They have a Land Rover, full everything you could get in a Land Rover. The car is $202,000, far more than I could ever. If I was a billionaire, I might buy one just because I could afford it. But yeah, and the others even are running 100,000, 105,000, 110,000. So my wife and I, we chose the Discovery Sport because that's what we could afford to lease. And when you say, well, why did you buy it? Well, it's a beautiful car. It has enormous capabilities. In fact, I get notices all the time that Land Rover USA runs experience days where you can, or I can take my car, my Discovery, and figure out, okay, how to go over mountain boulders and all this, or how to go through sand, or how dealing with snow and ice. They have experience schools to teach you how to use your car to get the maximum benefit from it. Now, over hilly terrain, they're designed to do that. So again, it was a bucket list thing. And the Discovery Sport it's a beautiful SUV. And that was my decision. I didn't have a whole lot of complex things I looked at. Now the car that we bought to own, that's a different story. We really did sit down and go and do some pairwise comparisons. Okay, well, folks, we'll pop over here and we'll see that summary, okay, as they use that. And then they give us some key terms, etc. Well, we've looked at the AHP model, okay, and how to establish priorities. We looked at that, and when we come on Wednesday, we'll look at the scoring models. So I'm going to pretty much wrap it up here for today, okay? Because I wanted to spend some time talking about what's going on in the finals, the course, etc. This array of resources I've given you, the methodology behind these approaches, and then the AHP itself. Okay? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to stop the share and then end the meeting, and this will be the screencast for Monday, April 30th, that I promised I would do in advance of class. So I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to stop the recording and end the meeting.